On the Fringe with Dan RadioStyle. Hope everybody out there is having themselves a great day. The media and Smartmatic and Dominion and all these people seem like they're kind of in cahoots. Obviously, the media is trying to push this as quick as possible. Make this happen, make this happen, make this happen as quickly as possible. They don't want anybody to be lifting up rocks and looking under stones and all that kind of stuff. But we'll find that's, obviously opposite of what's happening right now. Now, what I've noticed is it's not just the results that are in question, and the results are a question for a lot of places. Are there enough votes to overturn an election or not? That's what the media is pushing right now. Again, they're pushing angles that aren't necessarily what's happening. But the other thing that's happened, and the evidence hasn't necessarily been presented yet, which again, the media is being impossible about, is the fact that we very well have Dominion and Smartmatic were two companies that were not just working overseas, sending our data overseas, but were actually two companies that may have messed up the process. So it's one thing to not trust the results, and they're questionable. I'm not saying I don't trust them, and we'll see. We've got the right people looking into it, and I know the courts are going to decide this, not the media. But when the process is broken, well, now your data doesn't matter at all, does it? When the process is broken, you can't really trust. When someone puts their hand down in front of the dominoes that are falling and prohibits the rest of the dominoes, well, the dominoes would have fallen in a normal circumstance, but something happened to alter that. We have to understand that there are forces that want to be a two-tier system. There are the ultra-elite, obviously on the coastal cities that a lot of people are talking about now, that have truly lost touch with the majority of us. The majority of us being the working class people, the people that actually do pay the taxes in this country, versus those that are exceptionally wealthy and have large positions of control within our society. And these are the places that we're a little concerned. And, one example right here, oddly, Apple is lobbying Congress to weaken a bill that literally bans the use of Chinese slaves to make the iPhone. That seems hard to believe, I'm sure. But when we get down to this article, lobbyists working for Apple are applying pressure on the elected class in Washington, D.C. to dilute the effects of the Uyghur Forced Labor Prevention Act. That proposed legislation would require all U.S. companies to certify that they do not use slavery or forced labor from the Chinese region of Xinjiang, I don't know how to say that, where the ethnic minority of the Uyghur population are being herded into concentration camps and used as a source of cheap labor. Now, our vice president that got voted for, Kamala, right? Her whole thing in California that she got taken down by Tulsi Gabbard and was awesome was how she kept people in prison longer than their sentences so they could be used as labor. These are the people that have gotten into bed with all these tech conglomerates and all these other people. These are who we're obviously fighting against. Now, what's very important is we've got the best teams working for us, and then we've got this side that is doing stuff really right out in the open. I mean, Gavin Newsom, for example, telling all of us that we've got a lockdown here in California, that we can't go outside, that we're not allowed to open schools, while he's allowed to have his children attending in-person classes 5 days a week. Two tiers. We don't want all of you regular people like you and I to be intermingling with them. No. Not okay. Another individual who is interestingly not playing this like the media wants them to, and I thought this was some amazing good news, is Putin is not ready to recognize Biden. Putin even came out at one point before the election and said he wanted to see Biden win. Now, I personally do think that was actually Russia messing with the election, but I think ultimately we've got a deep state takedown occurring right now. I honestly do believe that Russia and some other countries, and certainly Putin as the leader of Russia, in some other countries. England might be playing a part in this. I've got questions about Japan. I think they've had some leadership changes. India's doing some different stuff. There's a lot of countries that are starting to round up around the deep state. Now, China's kind of the face of the deep state right now. France, Germany, right? These are some of the deep state faces. Trudeau in Canada, very deep state. Yet we've got these people that are coming out and saying, yeah, I don't really care what you all say. I don't care what the media is saying. No, I'll wait until you all figure it out. And that's what he said. According to Bloomberg, he's going to work with anyone who has the confidence of the American people. But that confidence can only be given to a candidate whose victory has been recognized by the opposing party or after the results are confirmed in a legitimate, legal way. Doesn't that almost imply that he probably sees some shenanigans too? A country that's got exceptional intelligence capabilities as well. Don't you think they maybe saw some of the shenanigans possibly happening as well? That maybe, since Trump can't be friends with this guy, even though they probably are, right? They maybe send carrier pigeons across and try to pass letters to each other, kind of like he was doing with Kim Jong-un. Whatever the case is, and I'm not saying I'm all pro-Russia, like that Russia's free from sin. No. What I am saying is these people got screwed by the deep state as well, and they're a little bitter as well. Now, something else that's interesting as the White House continues to move forward, much like they're still in charge, which just has to floor people right now, right? It's absolutely got to drive people insane. But as Trump is considering his next steps in his ongoing crusade to challenge the election results, he appears increasingly set on unleashing a scorched earth policy and the already dismal relationships to China. From what I'm understanding, he's trying to leave a reasonably powerful trade alliance that is supposed to be able to compete against China. Again, think deep state, think of it being around China and them trying to basically tell countries, look, if you don't get on board and play the game, you're going to be pushed out of trade. You're not going to be able to get stuff unless you play the game the way we want you to. And what Trump is doing, even though Zero Hedge is calling it scorched earth, which I disagree with, but he might be making it hard for Biden's administration to cozy up to China as much as they want. But Trump's trying to create trade groups outside of China, probably ones that are going to help with England and a lot of these other countries that are trying to step away from the deep state. So you'll have this deep state niche or group of people, but then you'll have all these other countries that are basically putting up their middle finger to the deep state and saying, no, we're going to go with this friendly community that the United States is supporting right now, rather than this tyrannical, communistic dictatorship that China, and they're building iPhones with their slave people, right? God knows what other crazy stuff they're doing. So understand, things are still moving forward. There's still a larger view at work. As much as the media wants to say Trump lost, the only reason they're freaking out, the only reason they're getting in front of all these different discussions, the only reason they keep saying there's no evidence, even though there is, they keep saying all this because it's a huge threat. Because they know that Dominion and Smartmatic were doing freaky things. They know that was built into the software. They bought the software on many occasions, such as Georgia, as Sidney Powell's talked about, being a place they paid $100 million to get this software in, and they purchased it basically late last year. And then even on top of all that, I work in software. On top of all that, you don't do releases the day before you go live. And they did that as well. They pushed a whole big update the day before the election, which is weird. And if you're doing it because there was a bug, that's super weird. And really what it begs is something strange maybe happened that they were trying to keep on the down low, and they didn't want people to have time to look into it. Whatever the case is, information's lining up that is going to show what has happened. It's going to show that, yes, in a lot of cases, votes were flipped. It's going to show in a lot of cases that there was software that was able and capable of doing on-the-fly flips. Everybody saw what happened in these key states on the overnight hours, and everybody knows this data was sent overseas. We've got confirmation from Powell recently that the data did end up in the white hat's hands, the good people's hands. So we've apparently got these servers. Now, if it's the NSA or whoever, I don't know who's looking into it. And again, it's a CIA server. None of this is ever going to come to the public's knowledge. None of it. All of us want to know about it, and a lot of us are going to get upset that we're not going to be told about it. But trust me, you're not going to be told about this. I'm not going to be. None of us will. Not going to happen. The results will. But what's on that server, I don't know. I don't know what they're going to be able to show us. It's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. Again, it's the process, not just the data. Data's in question, But if the process was broken, who cares about the data? If the process was broken, then the data's way wrong. And we can't even do a new revote because the process is broken. Really, ultimately, the way this is probably going to play out, and all they have to do is prove that there was enough shenanigans to demonstrate the process is untrustworthy. Right now, the media is focusing on how, there's not enough votes to change hands. Not necessarily true, especially if there was a ratio at work where 75% of all of Trump's votes went to him and 25% of all of Trump's votes went to Biden. And then on top of that, they broke the algorithm and then they had to start manually feeding votes potentially to Biden. Again, if any of those things happen, if there's any evidence of any of that happening, then there's a guarantee flaw in the process. And it's not going to be an issue of, we just can't certify the results. No, we can't trust any of these machines. And of the 28 states that were using this software, or maybe more, but they're saying right here, Giuliani's talking about how votes from 28 states were sent to Germany and Spain to be, his words, fraudulently rigged by Smartmatic. I don't disagree with those words. I'm just saying they're his words. One of the big questions that all of us should be asking, first off, again, like everyone said, why are we sending our voting information to another country? Why are we trusting another country to build our voting software? Why? Now, the easy answer is because the people that the deep state wanted to get this nasty software. Apparently, Powell's saying it's reminiscent of the CIA something scorecard. I forget the name of it. But it's a CIA project that looks like that's what became Dominion or Smartmatic. So all of these things are coming together. People in the intelligence community know what's going on. People in the intelligence community have seen this technology used against other countries. People in the intelligence community know what Venezuela was doing with this software. It's not a secret. Normal people may not know about it, but the intelligence communities do. People like Michael Flynn, for example, who was a 3-star general who was in charge of a lot of the intelligence and counterintelligence. And guess who his lawyer is? Right, Sidney Powell. Now, we're going to cover something because there's been a lot of discussions around Sidney Powell and how she's not really Trump's lawyer, and she's not. And Trump's not paid her any money whatsoever. She's not part of Trump's legal team at all. Yet she's still digging into stuff. We're going to talk about that in a moment. But that's a very big question. Why? Why does that matter? Why are they bringing it up? We're going to get to it. Now, one thing I want to call out really quick before we get into that is I want to point out to a lot of you guys, as of recently, I don't know how long ago, this was probably a couple days ago. It's not even worth trying to find at this point. But there are, as of right now, 14 Republicans that have acknowledged Biden as the winner. Now, some of these names are going to be familiar to you. Some of these names won't be. Some of these names might need to be familiar to you. Again, I want to understand, or I want to explain that the deep state is not just a Democrat thing. People keep trying to say, it's Democrats, it's Dems, it's Dem. No, let's try to leave the Republican Party, Democrat Party names out of it. There is the progressive left. Yes, that's a problem. And I'm kind of going to use that nickname going forward. And you do have your hardcore Republicans on the right that just no matter what are Republicans till the day they die. That's fantastic. But here are Mitt Romney, Lisa Murkowski, Ben Sasse, Susan Collins, Francis Rooney, Adam Kinzinger, John Shimkus, Paul Mitchell, Fred Upton, Tom Reed, Will Hurd, John Curtis, Denver Riggleman, and Jennifer Gonzalez-Colon are all Republicans who have said, hey, Biden, you're the new president. Looking forward to working with you, big guy. Fist bump. These 14 people better not be in office next time a vote comes around. That's my ask to each and every one of you. Hopefully we can get another Republican to run against him. Maybe even a centrist Democrat. Again, I don't like the titles. I don't like the titles because I've got family that are Democrats, and I don't think they're evil. I actually think they're just misled. So I think this is the case with a lot of people right now. And it's really important to make sure we understand that who our enemy is not our fellow neighbor. Our enemy is not our fellow neighbor. Our enemy is the deep state and the people that are utilizing this technology to hold us down. We've got slavery from the standpoint of how all of us economically are kind of in this life together, right? You kind of have to somehow make money, or you got to get into the system to where the money's given to you. But whatever the case is, there's economic slavery that most of us experience in life. And on top of that, now we've got censorship. We've got people that are going to tell you what and where you can go. We've got the mask mandates that are going on. We've got people telling us that we can't actually hang out with family during Thanksgiving and probably Christmas. Watch that happen next. So we've got to understand what's really going on. Now, one thing that's cool, and this has been all over the place. If you haven't heard it already, you obviously live under a rock, and that's okay. Living under rocks is cool. Again, we're lifting rocks up. We're probably going to find you someday, so have no fear. We'll get to you, I promise. But the thing they keep talking about that's pretty funny is her evidence against Georgia. And to use her terminology, she's going to blow up Georgia next. And her evidence is going to be biblical. Now, I don't know what that means either. My girlfriend was actually asking me, she's from the Philippines, she's like, why biblical? Why that? And I was trying to explain to her how all the crazy stuff that happens in the Bible, it's like, there's no other history we have that's so freaking crazy, where the entire planet was wiped out and then we're able to write about it afterwards, right? Like, otherwise it was like, yeah, we had slaves and then we had a civil war and now we don't have slaves. Like, that was historically one of the majorest things, but biblical's way beyond that. So I was trying to explain that to her. It is kind of funny when you think about, like, why are we using that term? But it's, what else you got? What, Earth life extinction level event, like an Ellie? So I don't know. That all being said, Sidney Powell has confirmed, and Trump's legal team has confirmed, really weird how this played out. I'm going to talk about why I think it is. But they've both agreed that Sidney Powell is not affiliated with the Trump legal team, and yet she vows to continue the fight. Now, Trump's legal team came out and said, yep, Sidney Powell's not part of our group. And Sidney Powell came out and said, yep, I am not part of their group. They've given me no money, nada. Yet, she's in this to win this. Now, one, I'm almost 100% sure, because of what she knows due to her client relationship with Flynn, she's probably privy to some really effed up stuff. And probably very upset about how the deep state has totally steamrolled Flynn, how illegal it was, how what Judge Sullivan's currently doing by not letting the case be dropped is exceptionally illegal. So Powell's got a little bit of a beef, a little bit of a bad taste in her mouth, a little bit of heartburn, if you will, to what's going on. Now, why would the Trump campaign or the Trump administration or the Trump's legal team, why would they want to step away from Powell? Or at least acknowledge that, hey, we're not in bed together. We're not in cahoots. And what I think it is actually to keep her from being tainted. The media would love to taint her as being part of Trump. But if she's not part of Trump, they can't taint her that way, can they? No. And so it allows her to continue to operate as a concerned citizen, as someone that's, as she's put it, supporting we the people. Without a doubt, she is a patriot. Sidney Powell is a true, through and through patriot. And she's someone that probably knows way more than any of us will ever find out in our lifetimes. And I think she's pissed. So is she probably doing this for free? Probably. Did she probably make zillions of dollars with Flynn and everything else she's done in her life? Probably. She's probably very well off. And will she probably get some sort of compensation in some ways? I'm sure she will. But I think it's very interesting. And again, the best I got right now is I think the separation of cooties, if you will. Keeping her away from Trump. Keeping Giuliani's hair product away from her hair, right? Like, we can't intermingle. We can't intermingle. And if we don't, I think things could actually work out. Now, one other person that kind of agrees with that, and I want to remind everybody that Alan Dershowitz has been on the Lolita Express. Alan Dershowitz has been to that island. There's pictures that used to flow around on the intelligence drops of Clinton and 3-4 other dudes, and suspicion was that he was actually the guy taking the picture. Needless to say, Dershowitz is by far not a clean specimen by any means. That being said, he has actually comes out and says there are at least 2 elements that Trump will need in order to make a convincing argument: the legal argument and the numbers. He noted they have 2 winning legal arguments in Pennsylvania. The first on how the courts managed what the legislature did regarding counting the vote after the election day, and the second on equal protection, how some counties allowed ballots to be cured and others didn't. Now, it's obvious in Pennsylvania, for those of you that have kind of been following it and not, that the judges, the courts, literally made changes to the laws, and the election officials got involved. But none of the voting laws that were passed and changed over the past 90 days to a year, 90 days is a lot, and then over the last year, there's been a number of changes. None of those happened through the legislature. That's actually against the Constitution of Pennsylvania, and certainly against the Constitution of the United States. So right out of the gate, they did a bunch of illegal stuff. And then when the Supreme Court said, hey, I think it was Alito that said it. He's like, hey, you guys can't do that. You need to set aside the ballots. The ones that came in after 8 o'clock on Election Day, you need to put those into a separate pile. They didn't do that. They said, F you, I don't care what you say. So right out of the gate, Pennsylvania's entire process is in question. Not just because of Smartmatic and Dominion, but because of what they've done illegally. So now we've got votes that have been separated. Now we've not allowed people to be in the room when they're counted. There's just, again, the whole entire process. The whole process in Pennsylvania looks flawed. So that's one of the issues that they've talked about. So he feels, Dershowitz, slimy guy, feels like that's one of the things that has to be dealt with. So he says the problem with winning these cases, Dershowitz adds, will be in proving that there were enough ballots in both cases to overturn the election's results, which is the high bar. Now, this is what I was saying earlier. The press keeps focusing on this. This is what the press wants you to look at. Look right here. It's like when magic tricks happen, right? And they've got this hand all doing this. Well, in the other moment, this hand's doing something else while this is doing all the magic stuff. This is the one that's pulling the card out of the sleeve, right? You're looking over here, and all of a sudden I got a flower in my hand, right? Or the rabbit pops out of the hat. That's what they have going on here. They're like, don't look at the broken process. Don't look at the unconstitutional stuff that actually happened that would call the whole process broken. Don't look at that. What I need you to look at is how it's going to be really hard to find enough votes that you can prove were flipped that are going to give you this election. That's not what they have to do. Now, that's what Slimy Dershowitz says. All right. So in regards to the Dominion case, now Dershowitz is starting to talk about process a little, but in regards to the Dominion case, Dershowitz says it sounds like they have the numbers, but since he hasn't seen the evidence, it's hard to say whether they can pull that one off in the next 2 weeks. This is the big question mark that everybody, deep state specifically, wants to know. This is why Tucker Carlson went after Sidney Powell. He approached her, from what I understand, and I've dug into the story a little bit more. I've talked about it a little bit, but now that I've dug into it a little more, it sounds like Tucker Carlson reached out to Sidney Powell and says, hey, we hear that you're saying X, Y, and Z. We want to see the proof. Give us the proof. And we'll put you on our show. We'll do whatever you want to do. Send us the proof. And then when Sidney didn't send him the proof he wanted, he started to kind of bug her about it even more. And she basically said, look, I'm not giving you the proof. Here's an affidavit that I haven't even filed yet. Here's some proof. And he's like, that's not what we want. We want the proof to the Dominion case. She's like, well, I'm not giving that to you right now. And he kept asking. He was being rude in her opinion. And so she said, you know what? Don't contact me ever again. Now, what just happened in that situation is Tucker Carlson just, one, pissed off a lot of people that liked him up until that point. And two, he just removed himself from any future possibilities of finding anything out from Sidney Powell. Sidney Powell's been on Newsmax a bunch, and she is showing up on some other shows and certainly showing up in different periodicals all over the place. She's finding ways to get on. And right now, she's a hot ticket item. Like Tucker said, I'll give you the whole week, and I'll just sit there quietly. But that's not going to happen there, big dog. Sorry, Tuck. You screwed up. You screwed up bad. You thought you were doing the right thing, and maybe you were in your heart. Maybe you were. But ultimately, you're working for the deep state, and this is what happens when you are working for the wrong people. You do the wrong things. Something that's important to point out, and this has also gotten a lot of attention. I have not mentioned this. It's been around for days, and I apologize. I've been paying attention to it like mad, and it's very interesting to point out. And it is interesting who the different judges are for which states, right? Because this is the way the circuit's assignments are happening. And what the circuit assignments for the Supreme Court are, you obviously have 9 judges, and these judges get broken into different states. So if these states have Supreme Court issues or things bubble up to their 9th Circuit or 8th Circuit, whatever circuit it's in, when it bubbles up to that circuit, they're able to help step in and help make the process go quicker. So they're like an extra judge with some muscles, right? An extra judge on steroids, basically. So Alito is in the 3rd Circuit. So that's Delaware, New Jersey, Pennsylvania. So New Jersey and Pennsylvania probably should catch your eye. Alito's one of the good guys, one of the constitutionalists. Judge Roberts, questionable no matter what way he goes. But for the 4th Circuit, that's Maryland, North Carolina, South Carolina, West Virginia, and Virginia. Yeah, questionable states, but not really deal breakers, right? When we get down to the 5th Circuit, that's Alito as well. That's Louisiana, Mississippi, and Texas. So Texas was protected and might still come into play. We've got Brett Kavanaugh on the 6th Circuit. So that's Michigan, Ohio, as far as the main ones, Kentucky and Tennessee also. We've got Amy Coney Barrett, who's the 7th Circuit. So that's Illinois, Indiana, Wisconsin. Think of it. Kavanaugh is also in the 8th Circuit. So we've got Minnesota. What else we got? And we got the Dakotas, Nebraska, Iowa, Arkansas, right? Got all that good stuff in there. 10th Circuit, we've got Gorsuch, Clarence Thomas, who's definitely a constitutionalist. He's got the 11th Circuit, Bama, Florida, Georgia. Think about it. We've got the right people in the right places. That's how this is playing out. This was expected. This was known. The Patriots knew what was going to happen. The Patriots even said in posts in the past that the 2020 election was supposedly guarded and protected, and then some, meaning even after that. They knew this was coming. A lot of people are like, why don't you stop it? Why didn't you stop it? That was never on the table. That was never supposed to happen. It was an issue of, we know what's going to happen. Now, what do we got to put in place to catch them? And that is what they did. From what I understand, Sidney Powell's expecting to file some major stuff either Wednesday and or Friday. So expecting major stuff to drop this week, probably around Atlanta first, which is going to really start to blow the wheels off this entire process. And that is where people are going to really start to see what really happened. And if we truly did, the White Hats got a hold of the servers, that means we have the evidence. And if we've literally got digital evidence that they haven't been able to change, and I'm hoping that's the case, we'll see. But if they've got digital evidence of votes flopping and or algorithms happening, which would, one way you would know that was happening is if they had decimals of Trump votes. Think about it, right? How did you get 0.1 of a vote, Trump? Oh, yeah, it's because we have an algorithm that steals. I mean, I don't know. That seems impossible. So we're rounding votes now? Is that what's happening? Again, things will show. The data's already got anomalies all over the place. Anybody that's sort of a data steward, anyone that sort of messes with analysis of data is looking at this and going, yeah, this doesn't match. None of this matches. None of this is accurate. Let this week play out. Let's not try to be too arrogant and cocky amongst our friends. And this is, I think, a really important part right now. If you're going to talk to people that are open-minded, share this evidence, share these different articles, share what's going on, at least talk about the process. I am not in a place where I'm going to sit here and swear on every ounce of my being that Trump already won this. I absolutely believe that, but it has to play out. And I'll believe it when I see it. Because this is so crazy and this is so out there, but I actually do think this is the time in history where this was going to happen. This is stuff I've been reading about for years, decades. And we finally got to the place that I'd always heard about, but never actually believed was going to happen one day. And then 2020 happened. And I was like, holy crap, all the things are happening now. We are living through a historic time, folks. This is a very important time for us to understand the context of what's happening, Understand there's a lot of people that are completely lied to and don't really understand that. And understand there's a reasonable number of us, I don't know how big that number is, I think it's pretty big, that are waking up or already see the crazy that's happening. We're the knife's edge. We're the front. We're the leading edge of the wing. We're the ones that need to be forgiving, understanding, and loving. Because once the election part happens, we've still got a number of steps ahead of us, folks. The election will be Trump's to win. I'm almost sure of that. I mean, again, I'll believe it when I see it. But if you start thinking about after that, we've got a lot of things that we're going to have to deal with right after, certainly. And then for the next 4 years, as the deep state continues to try to do things that are mischievous, and how their plans are for the next 4 years. I'm sure there's arrests and stuff that are meant to come after. Maybe that's where AG Barr finally kicks in. Maybe that's where Durham finally kicks in. And maybe a lot of them just stepped back and said, all right, Trump, you said trust you. You said trust the plan. Let's see it happen. And I'm sure Trump's like, we got this. So let's see it play out. Let's let it happen. Let's understand the way the story is being presented to us in most cases is just, it's not accurate. It's not a true representation of what's going on. And the hurdles that they're setting up are hurdles you can run around because those aren't really the hurdles. The hurdles really more, I think, in the process. And that, I think, will also come out. So again, a lot's going to be coming out this week. A lot of exciting news is out there. And I do think there's a lot right now to be hopeful about. And there's some weird stuff that to me almost seems like you should be hopeful of that too, because it's like so strange. You've got to be like, why do they care if Powell and Trump are tied together? They're not fighting with each other, right? And Trump's not like, she's horrible, he's horrible. No, but just everyone's agreeing. Yeah, I'm not working for him. He's not working for me, blah, blah, blah. Huh. Okay. So a lot going on. Let's pay attention. Let's stay together for each other. And let's do our best to stay united. United, we are strong. Divided, we are weak. Where we go one, we go all. It's On the Fringe with Dan RadioStyle.